Welcome to K6 Wellness Revolution, where we believe health is worth fighting for. This podcast focuses on all things related to natural health, wellness, and vibrant living. We know your time is valuable, and I'm honored that you're spending some of it here. So get ready, because the Wellness Revolution starts right now. Ever wondered what it would be like to unlock the full potential of your health, no matter where you are in the world? Well, wonder no more. I want to share something truly special with all our listeners out there, especially those who might not be able to visit our wellness center here in Dallas, Texas. We believe that health knows no boundaries, and that's why we've crafted a transformative experience just for you. Introducing our 6-month virtual program, a comprehensive journey towards holistic healing designed for anyone, no matter where you are. Whether you're dealing with brain fog or fatigue or a chronic health condition and no answers or relief in sight, or maybe you're looking to boost your overall wellness, well, this program will be tailored just for you. Picture this: weekly insights delivered to your inbox by our dedicated client care specialists, guiding you through the wisdom of naturopathic care and holistic healing. Monthly Zoom calls with our experienced practitioners and other virtual program participants, creating a virtual community for you to ask your questions, concerns, and get personalized guidance. We've thoughtfully curated monthly supplement packages complete with recommendations and dosages tailored to your needs. And here's the personal touch: a monthly one-on-one virtual call with our practitioners to discuss your progress, address your concerns, and fine-tune your wellness plan. And this program goes beyond the realm of just canned virtual programming. It's a holistic approach that embraces mind, body, and spirit. We believe that health is a journey that's different for everyone. And with our virtual program, you'll have the guidance and the support you need every step of the way. So whether you're across the country or across the globe, join us on this transformative journey towards well-being. Visit our website or reach out to our team to learn more about how you can be a part of our 6-month virtual program. Visit us at k6wellness.com to schedule a free discovery call to find out if this is right for you. Welcome to the K6 Wellness Revolution podcast. My name is Sharon, owner of the K6 Wellness Center in Dallas, Texas, and I'm joined, as always, by my sidekick, Elena, to host this month's episode. Today, we're going to be looking at 2 really important questions in the health and wellness world, and that is, how has health changed, and do toxins really matter in that realm? Toxins are everywhere in almost everything, and at this day and age, they're almost impossible to avoid. Here at K6 Wellness, we always encourage our clients to live a non-toxic lifestyle as much as they can, because the accumulated effect of toxins on our health just grows more and more by the day. So today we're going to start with the basics of what we have seen change in health, and we're going to share our expertise and opinions on how to identify and detox from toxins around you. So, hey, Elena.
Hello.
Okay, so how would you define health in today's world compared to like 10, 20 years ago?
I think it's gotten a little more complicated. I mean, I feel like it's harder in some ways because there's just so many more toxins that people are being exposed to. Because you think back to what it looked like, say, a decade ago, we saw, some toxicity levels, and we would do the test and you'd see some, but now it's not seeing some, it's seeing a ton on most individuals. And so it takes a lot more effort. We have to be a lot more intentional just as individuals to protect ourselves from our exposures, and we have to be aware of it. And I think there has been a lot of increased awareness. People are beginning to know that we live in a toxic soup. People just know more than they did 10 years ago because they have to.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think that convenience plays into a lot of our toxic exposures, because everything, in order for something to be marketable, it has to be convenient, and convenience usually involves plastics. And while plastics are a big part of our world, and I'm not here to just dump all over it, carte blanche, but I think that we have to weigh the, like I said earlier, the accumulated effect. What are the sources of toxins that we're getting? And I think too, for me, like 20 years ago, when I got into this, everything was about viruses. It's all about the viruses, right? Epstein-Barr virus and chronic fatigue, and autoimmune was really tied very heavily to viruses. And then as the years have gone on, there's this bigger realization that, oh, yeah, well, okay, you have these infections, you have these viral antibodies in your blood, you've got all these exposures, but you have all of these other exposures like toxins. And one of the first places I ever saw that was in breast implant illness. And
Yeah.
I waded into that. Like, I did not know what I was getting into. I was doing my EAV testing on a client, and I just kept getting silicone over and over and over and over. And I was like, I don't have a clue why this is coming up. She's like, well, I have breast implants, and I have unencapsulated injections in my lips and my cheeks and my butt. And she had gone to one of those home parties and had gotten this done. And that was my like, oh my gosh. And I thought, okay, well, like we check antibodies for all kinds of autoimmune diseases. And this girl was real sick. And I was like, I wonder if you make antibodies to silicone. I wonder if we can do that. And I started looking around, and I didn't see anywhere where you could, but now it turns out you can. For women out there who may have breast implants and be struggling with it, it is still, in the newer stages, but I think that, yeah, toxins have come around, and I think that we are beginning to recognize how much more the things in our environment play into the greater health picture.
Well, and wouldn't you say too, chemicals aren't new. Toxins, like we're speaking of, aren't new. The amount is increasing. But I feel like, kind of to your point, where it was all about viruses, there was so much more focus a decade or two ago about the more natural toxins that our bodies were designed to fight. Now our bodies are designed to be able to detox all the stuff we're exposed to, but it wasn't exactly designed to handle the amount and the load and the type, because now we're fighting unnatural man-made chemicals and toxicities. So it's just a different ballgame.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And again, a lot of it's in our consumer products, but a lot of it's in our air. And I think and we're going to get into it a little more, but some like the total toxin test that we use, because we realized, when I first started 20 years ago, I would do mold mycotoxin testing where, mycotoxins are the poisonous gases that are created from molds. And some of those come from foods, but then some of them can come from water damaged buildings. And so I would test people for that. And it was really expensive. And
so expensive.
Yeah, it was real. It's still not cheap. But I remember people coming back and theirs were clean, and we were doing good. Like there were 6 mycotoxins we could test for. And that was it. I know. And so you were really hesitant as a provider to go, okay, yeah, I want you to spend $800 on this test, and hopefully we're going to get some useful information. The total toxin test, we do check for the mold mycotoxins, but there's so many more. There are dozens of them. And then we check for the heavy metals and then the environmental toxins. And I think that that kind of testing has really served the greater good, because it has brought to in a very affordable manner for patients. This is, look, your body is dealing with an undue burden of, name it, whatever it is. And so, yes, you may have chronic fatigue and you may have, name your diagnosis, but at the end of the day, when your liver, your kidneys, your skin and your lymph, your gut, when everything's so overwhelmed by toxins, how in the world is your body supposed to be able to do its day-to-day stuff?
Right. Well, what would you say are some of the significant changes in health practices that we've noticed over the years? Like, what would you say?
Man, so many things. We could just do a podcast on this.
I know.
So exercise for sure. And I think, for me, like in 20 years, it's gone from cardio to the HIIT workouts. And I think we've kind of gotten away in general from this, you got to like die on the treadmill idea. But I think the pendulum always swings, and you do see people go to other extremes. But I think balance is key. And I feel like if we just keep in mind that our bodies were made to move, our bodies were made to work. And it is truer the older you get that if you don't use it, you will lose it. And there's the whole thing, sitting is the new smoking. Sure, it is. It's terrible for you. It's terrible for men's prostates. It's terrible for posture. It's terrible for cognition. There are just so many things that are benefited from moving our bodies. So any kind of exercise that floats your boat, in my book, go for it. If you're not going to injure yourself, I think that's amazing. But yeah, there's so many crazy. I love the evolution of exercise. I love seeing people do yoga and Pilates and even like the Camp Gladiator or, these early morning boot camps. It's just so much fun.
Well, and there's just such a variety now that people can choose from. And I love the change I've noticed, that it's not one size fits all, even with the exercise and fitness, because for some people, and we've talked about this in previous podcasts and conversations, like some people need more than others, but it's just moving and it's understanding what type of movement your body can handle, what it can recover from, and what is going to get you moving. Like, what do you enjoy enough that is going to make you move? And for a lot of people, just having a pet, like walking a dog, it's going to move them.
That's true. And I think what you say is key there. That's something that I know we tell people is, if you hate your workout, you're never going to stick with it. You need to find something you love to do. If you love to dance, then please center your fitness around dancing. If you love pushing and pulling, then please go row. Whatever it is. There's no right or wrong, but I think keeping everything in balance and doing something you enjoy. Me, myself, I get bored pretty easily, so I like to switch things around. And now I think I have found, I know through the years, like I work out better when I have somebody with me, and I will tend to be the one who keeps us going, like not the pace setter necessarily, but I'm more the consistent.
More accountability.
I'm the accountability. Yeah. And having somebody with me, whether I'm running, walking, biking, lifting, doesn't matter. So yeah, that to me is a big deal. So what is your key to success with exercise?
It is less is more.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to learn that and just understand that less really was more for me, even though I felt like I had to work out all the time, had to move all the time, because exercise is good, right? So more is better, right?
That's the American way.
Right. And I just kept wondering, why am I struggling to recover? And why am I struggling to push myself when I love exercise? I love movement. I don't sit still very well.
Yeah.
But doing less and learning to listen to my body when it says to rest, that's a big thing.
Oh, for sure.
And once again, we all need different levels of it, but understanding that I actually get more gains out of my exercise, and then I have less crashes in my health. Coming from an autoimmune background personally, I do have to juggle that and manage that. Just so I know you do as well, but there's just different levels of tolerance there.
There is.
So just,
yeah.
And not being as extreme. And that ties into even, another significant change, I think, is how we look at nutrition, and how there's been so many fad diets over the years, keto, carnivore, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, so many different ones. And there is a time and a place for almost all of those. And you have to know what your body can handle. You see people going into keto who don't have a gallbladder. You got to be really careful. Right. It's not a great idea. Or people who are vegan, but they are so deficient in iron.
Or B12.
And maybe some B vitamins. Yeah. And I just love that there is more awareness around some of the dangers of doing these restrictive diets for so long. And I have fun, and I think you do too, just kind of on ourselves. We're like, I'm going to try this diet this month and just see what happens to my body. Always. Because it's time to change it up. When you don't want the body to get used to the same thing all the time. Yeah. So let's keep changing it up. And sometimes you get through a couple weeks or a month and it's like, nope, not doing that one again.
Well, and for me, I've always owned up to this. Like, I will try anything on myself before I recommend it to somebody. And sometimes that is
Absolutely.
not a good outcome. At least I want to know, like, what does this do? And yeah, it's been fun and interesting. And nutrition it's so fascinating. And I think we've come so far from just these generic multivitamins for seniors. Now we have such precise nutrition. We have micronutrient testing to help steer that, genetic expertise for nutrition and for exercise, and like to exercise. I'm a fast recovery person. Who knew, right? So, but I think that's why I tend to be more consistent and accountable, is because I do recover faster. Doesn't mean I
Mhm.
perform better. I just recover faster. And then with nutrition, everybody has a different demand, and I don't think that that's something, some fad diet. And ladies, please hear me when I say this. If you're taking nutritional advice from a 30-year-old man with a ripped abs, I mean, good for him. But I promise you, what works for him most likely will not work for you in the long run. I think we can all get results from any kind of diet for any given time, but eventually your body's going to demand what it needs. And for women, especially, I think too, the keto, the carnivore, things like, we got to be careful because our hormone cycles are so intricate. We need carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are not our enemy all the time. So, but different people need different amounts. So, what about providers? I think this is
Well,
really
I think,
interesting. And though I'm older than you grew up in this and I did not.
yeah, because for me, I always just looked for alternative practitioners. And I had a little experience with regular doctors, but I grew up in a family where we didn't go to the doctors. So I didn't have much experience with even a regular Western medicine doctor until I was in college and my health was crashing. And I went for some answers and quickly realized I wasn't going to get them there. And then as I continued on the journey, you find functional practitioners, and I think they're doing great work, where MDs who are trying to look outside the box. And then you can continue to take that further and further. And I say we're the deep end in what we do. And, you're bringing it together nicely as you're bringing your nurse practitioner degree certification. I'm losing the words there, but as you're bringing that on board with us, just bringing some Western medicine when we need that with the holistic world. But there's just so many different types of providers to choose from now. And I think there's just, it's wonderful to have that variety and more people who are trying to find answers because they're seeing in their clients, hey, this isn't working. I need to look deeper. I mean, I do this every week with clients. I see something every week. I think, okay, I need to know a little bit more about that so I can help this person even more than I did last time I saw them.
Yeah. And I think that's such an important quality for any type of person who wants to be in the space of functional wellness, functional
Mm-hmm.
medicine, integrative care, holistic care, call it whatever you want. It means different things to different people. But um, I think that desire to learn, to continue learning, that's really important for outcomes for patients and clients, and for the continued pursuit of excellence on the part of providers, because our world is changing. So of course, health is changing, and I think that part of the thing driving changes in health perceptions on the part of the public is how information gets disseminated, right? So social media, I love it. I love it when I hear doctors go, you know what I learned on TikTok? It's about medicine. It's funny, but it's so true. And I've said this too about my degrees. I feel like I should get a degree from YouTube because I've had some of the best reviews for exams and whatever on YouTube, and it's out there for everybody. So if you want to learn, you can. And we always tell our clients, hey, you need to advocate for yourself. Never apologize for standing up for yourself, because nobody knows you like you do, and nobody will advocate for you like you will.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think there was a study done, it's been a long, long time ago, but they had this some long-term clinical study, and they showed that people who argued with their doctor had better long-term outcomes. And I thought that is just so interesting. I mean, it's irritating, on the part of the provider
Mhm.
for a while, but that's great. If you have somebody willing to question the norm, because we're not a formula, we're not algorithms, we're all unique
Mhm.
individuals with individual needs. So that's really cool. Social media is good in that regard. So I think that everything being accessible is amazing.
No, it's great to have all the options and have more options because you need them when you're dealing with a lot of unknown health problems that we can trace back to toxins almost every time. And when you look at changes that we've noticed in the clients that are coming to K6, people are coming in with more and more chronic health problems. And we used to just see like asthma or food sensitivities or I don't know, like I can't eat dairy. All right, great. And that's causing these leaky gut symptoms. Leaky gut was the big one. And that's still a huge thing that we have to address. But there's just so much more depth to what people are bringing in the door. And my heart goes out to so many of these people. And I tell new clients all the time, unfortunately, your symptoms are common. They're not normal, they're common. But fortunately, because we see a lot of this, I think we can find you some answers.
Yeah.
And that's by asking the right questions, doing the right tests, and investigating. But just seeing there's a lot more depth to what people are bringing in. I mean, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think 20 years ago, it was, people would come in, like I would get a kid and they would have eczema. And so I go, oh, good, eczema. It's going to be dairy and eggs. And, like you had this little list, like you knew what was coming. And then 5 years in, it was like eczema can be really easy or can be really terrible because toxins had entered the scene. And I was still trying to address it from not an old paradigm, but just from the angle
A
of,
singular,
yeah, a
singular
singular
paradigm.
paradigm of the body's reacting to this thing and this thing is benign. And so we need to, just reset the body's response to it. And that's allergy desensitization, which I love. It's so powerful. But when you have a kid who's overrun with heavy metals or has been vaccine injured or has just unhealed, like maybe they've had 3 or 4 exposures to antibiotics and their gut is a mess. I'm sorry, but it's going to take more work. And so I started noticing things getting more and more complicated over time. And now anytime we see eczema, I mean, we would never just think, oh, dairy. It's like, oh, what did this person get into?
Right. What have you been exposed to?
We've got to dig deeper. And
Yeah.
so that has definitely, I think that's a big change, a big shift. It's not just simple stuff anymore. I think it starts that way and we just take stuff for granted and we're so good at covering things up.
And then just living with them and suffering
Yeah.
and thinking, it's normal.
And the way it was described to me when I was first learning like allergy desensitization is that, your skin is your largest organ. It's what's most visible. We feel it, we see it. And so when something goes wrong, skin's a great way for your body to get your attention. And if you ignore it or suppress it, it does not fix it. Your body will go, okay, well, the skin didn't work. How about the lungs? How about some asthma? And and if you look at the progression of some of these allergic type disorders, you do frequently see eczema turning into asthma and then progressing to gut issues, ADHD, things like that. And I think it's just the body, it's going deeper, deeper, deeper because you're not fixing the underlying problem.
Yeah.
And I think that's why
Well,
root cause became such a buzzword, right?
right, right. I mean, it's a buzzword for a reason. We
Yeah.
have to investigate to understand the root cause. But as we're talking of toxins, Sharon, why don't you break it down for us? What exactly are toxins? I feel like most of our listeners know, but let's just break it down.
Well, I think we hear toxins and we just automatically like see the hazmat stuff, but it's so much more than that because bacteria, while they can be good, can also be toxic, right? So you've got microbes, parasites, molds and fungus, viruses, bacteria. You've got stress. Stress can be toxic. People can be toxic. um, Chemicals, whether it's chemicals we're breathing in from the air or chemicals that we're ingesting because it's labeled as food, that can be toxic. And then that makes food toxic. Our food is toxic much of the time because of the poor quality of the ground, the soil, the water, the air, and then heavy metals. That's another thing that is a big toxin, and we've known about it for a long time, whether it's contributing to cognitive decline or mental retardation or developmental challenges or immune system issues. Metals are also, hormones can be toxic as well. We take in a lot of exogenous hormones, meaning they're not from in our body, they're from another source. And that's just the beginning of it. Those are just the big things, right? So anything can be toxic in the wrong amount, in the wrong place, and at the wrong time.
Well, and some things just are toxic in any amount. You look at some of the common things that we see, glyphosate, for example.
Oh yeah.
That's an herbicide that's used on the majority of mass produced crops. And they use it because it speeds up harvest time. And we love to use that here in America. There's a lot of countries around the world that won't use it, like Europe. It's so fun to go there and be able to eat all the food and not get sick. But here we've used it so much that it's in our water supply and our soil. Even non-organic veggies that have, or just crops that have never actually been sprayed will test for trace amounts of glyphosate because it's just, the ground is so saturated. And you talk about the ground being depleted. I mean, glyphosate completely removes all the good nutrients. It kills everything. And how many years does it take to replace the soil after glyphosate has been sprayed? I'm forgetting how many years.
I don't know.
But
isn't it 40?
But I mean,
I don't know. It's a lot
years
of years.
and years. Yeah. And it depletes all the magnesium out of the soil, which, is such an essential nutrient for us to be able to detox in the first place. But another big toxin that we see is BPA. And I feel like a lot of people are aware of that one because now you see BPA free. It just means it's made with worse stuff or something that's equally as bad.
Yeah. And they test these BPA free materials and they find BPA in there.
Right. It's not really BPA free. It's below a certain threshold.
Yeah.
But you get BPA almost every day. You buy something and take a receipt and handle that. You're getting BPA. And you talk about estrogen mimickers. BPA is a huge one and what that can do to your hormones. And we just don't get away from that either because no matter how strict you try to be, if you go buy a container of organic baby greens at the store, what does it come in? Plastic. Yeah. Anything you buy just about is in plastic. You can find some things in glass bottles, containers, but that's just not as common. And so we have to be very mindful of what other exposures we're getting in regards to plastics. But, other big ones, mycotoxins. I feel like for me, that's one of the biggest toxins I see on these toxicity tests. And it's not water damage building mycotoxins. This is from foods, from grains, from stored grains. And it could be nuts and seeds as well. And from dairy products, from animals that were fed these contaminated grains. And it's just sad to me how prevalent this is because you can't get away from a lot of these, but we can learn how to help the body detox, give it better defenses, and just learn to limit the exposures. Because another big one is the heavy metals. Those are just everywhere as well. You get it. If you've ever had a vaccine, you've gotten a dose of heavy metals, but there's so many ones that we're exposed to like lead and aluminum. But then how about the radioactive ones that are in the water and the soil, like barium and cesium, uranium, cadmium, beryllium? I mean, it's just common now. Common to see those in people.
Yeah, I know when we started doing the total toxin test, I was shocked. Mm-hmm. So much radioactive stuff because I used to see that in people here and there. I was like, why do you have uranium? and
you then could trace it back.
Yeah,
most of the time.
Yeah, but it is in the groundwater, and even if you're drinking filtered water, there's a great chance that you're not actually getting the radioactive elements out. The only way to remove the radioactive elements from your water is through water distillation. So that's That's not convenient, but it is doable. And I will say you can buy decent little water distillers for under $100 on Amazon, and we distill our water at our ranch, and we do some here. But reverse osmosis is great for removing a lot of things. Berkey water filters are good, I think. And I always tell people, look, you can't be perfect with everything, but do something. And if all you can do is a Brita filter, well, okay, start with that. But prioritize, when you're able to, do something more than a Brita filter and do your research. There's so many good companies out there now doing water filtration. There's no reason we have to be exposed to heavy metals in our water. But
Yeah, it's really
also,
unacceptable.
yeah, the arsenic in the groundwater, right? So if you're with
Mhm.
rice and domestic wines, and there's so many places that people get arsenic, and it's just crazy to think about. But I wanted to touch on something with the glyphosate, because you made a really good point about glyphosate. It's huge, and we are horrified at the levels of glyphosate people have in their bodies. People who are eating organic, right? And when you're eating organic, it doesn't mean you're not getting herbicides or pesticides. It just means you're getting less. Roughly, you're getting 2/3 less, but you're not getting no herbicides and pesticides. But if you think about glyphosate as like what it is, it's a glycine molecule. And glycine is part of what makes up our soft tissues in our body, connective tissue, soft tissue. And so if you have little places, little keyholes, and the only thing that can fill that is a glycine molecule, and you're just dumping glyphosate in the body right and left, guess what's going to take up all those little keyholes? Glyphosate. So there's a really simple way that you can reduce the amount of glyphosate absorption your body goes through, and that's through taking glycine as a supplement, especially right before you eat, because you are providing glycine to the body to then fill up those receptor sites or those little keyholes, so that when you do ingest the inevitable glyphosate, it passes on through without being absorbed. So there are some simple hacks. And when you know what toxins you're trying to target, it's really useful to know these things.
Right, because you can't do everything, and I never want people to hear us talking about toxins and just feel despair, because it
For sure.
does seem like you can't win. There are toxins everywhere at every turn, but it's learning to see how your body handles this, because while glyphosate is a very common one we see, I did a toxin test review today with a client, and she tested with hardly any glyphosate. Now, she was really high on other things, but that was a win for her. It's like her
Mm-hmm.
body does not react as poorly to this substance as other people's. So for her, glyphosate isn't the main concern, and glycine could still be helpful, but we could focus resources of time, money, and energy on the substances that were her big issues. So
Yeah.
it's just helpful to know, what are you chasing?
Yeah, because different toxins have different impacts on the body. And when you know what toxin you're dealing with, then you know the impact that it's having on your health. And then you know what you can do to address the toxins that you specifically are being burdened with. Um,
Mhm.
and the thing to remember too is, if you're overwhelmed with toxins of any sort, your body has to work harder to get rid of it. Your liver is your main filter, and it has to create a pathway for everything we ingest. So your body, if your body's overwhelmed with like, oh my gosh, what is this chemical? It's got to go over here. Oh, good Lord, here's another one. Now what? Then there's less time for your liver to or less resources available to cellular repair and really good detoxification and digestion, and you're going to age faster. You age your organs faster as well. So that's just just food for thought.
Right, because if you're constantly being exposed, and these prolonged um, exposures lead to effects on your health that people don't think about having a toxin at the root of. Let's talk about Alzheimer's or dementia, cognitive decline.
Parkinson's.
This, right, all these cognitive diseases develop because your body was exposed to something once upon a time that began to lead to poor detox, poor DNA repair, increased oxidation, increased inflammation, and it's going to settle differently for each person. But it's helpful when you know what your predisposition is. It's helpful to know what your exposures have been. So then you can work towards preventing or slowing down disease patterns. But you look at people who come in with different organ failures or cardiovascular disease, high cholesterol, it doesn't matter what it is. The approach to investigate is pretty similar.
Yeah.
Because you could get one toxin that creates all these disease patterns and all these symptoms, but you don't know, because I could guess and say, well, I'm looking at this right here, and it could be a heavy metal, it could be mycotoxins, it could be glyphosate. What is causing your body to behave this way? So whatever it is, we need to know.
I love Dr. Dale Bredesen has done just some amazing work with Alzheimer's, cognitive decline. And just for our listeners, he's written a book called The End of Alzheimer's, and he does practitioner training throughout maybe the world. But he, I think, really called into question this whole idea of a cure for Alzheimer's as far as it being like a drug, right? Because the drugs we have for Alzheimer's suck. They don't add anything to cognitive development or recovery. They just, I think when I was in nursing school, I think we learned in pharmacology that like Aricept, the main drug, prolonged your life by like 4 days. I mean, and it's not good days. So that's really terrible. But Dr. Bredesen, to his credit, has really brought to light, look, you've got all of these potential contributors to cognitive decline. And I think he calls them like leaks in your roof. And you've got to fix all these leaks in your roof, be it hormonal imbalances, the food that you eat, it's the toxic equation, right? And so it's identifying all of these different things that have to be addressed. And he has done a lot of good for reversing cognitive decline and stopping the progression. And I think when you look at Parkinson's too, I mean, okay, we've got the destruction of dopaminergic neurons, but why? Why? Was it just in your genes? Or is there a chance that maybe you were born with some predisposition, but were your exposures in life such that that's what ended up happening, and what can be done to unwind some of that and to reverse some of that? Because you never see people with cognitive decline who don't have high levels of toxins.
Ever. Or people who have managed their blood sugar perfectly, because I hardly ever see that. That's a big one, because don't they call Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes?
Yeah, diabetes.
And it's it's unchecked blood sugar, which gives unchecked metabolic health for years and years. And cancer, let's talk about that. That's a metabolic disease.
Mm-hmm.
But why? Why?
Yeah.
It's choices you've made, but then it's things that you didn't make a choice of, and it just happened upon you.
It's thrust
and
you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's where, once again, identifying the culprit, understanding what it is for you, understand what your risks are as far as your health goes, but understand your risks as far as what you are choosing to eat and consume and use and breathe, and choose, use wisdom when you're choosing your foods, when you're choosing your cleaning products, when you're choosing how you're going to live your life and what kind of environment, what matters to you. Is it important to you that you don't live by a 5G tower? It's just using the knowledge we have to make the best choice you can.
Because this isn't a perfect world, and you can't do perfect. You pick the things that are most important to you and most impactful to your health, and you pursue those things and you do them well. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I think that, as far as figuring that out, we do want people to feel empowered to make changes. And first of all, you do want to identify the culprit, use wisdom, yes, but then let's talk about what specific things. What is something that everybody could do, Elena, that would reduce toxin exposure?
Eat more fresh organic foods.
Yes.
Move, like we said, exercise, practice deep breathing. Breathing is a form of detox, and we forget about that one. Drink clean water. I mean, these are simple, basic things, but we often have to be stopped and reminded about these.
You know which one I think of more now than ever is sweating.
Oh,
People
yeah.
do not want to sweat. And
And I love
sweating,
sweating. It
I do
feels
too.
so good.
Sweating is so good for you. And I think we get so put we put ourselves aside in a little bubble, and then we forget what it's like to really live in nature, and we don't enjoy it anymore. And it is so important to sweat. That's one of the best ways to get rid of toxins, whether you're doing it outside because it's hotter than you know what in July in Texas or wherever you live, but or getting in a sauna. That's really good too. Or exercising, whatever it is, sweat is good. And it's a really important detoxification practice.
And sweating is more accessible than ever. Even if you don't have the heat in Texas in July, getting your own personal sauna, infrared saunas, they don't cost exorbitant amounts. You can get little personal ones online for about $150. Sure,
Yeah.
it's not the nice box spa version, but you can still get a sweat. You can take hot baths and showers. I mean, there's just so many ways, but I love that saunas are popping up everywhere, that sauna gyms are popping up everywhere. There's not an excuse to not sweat. You probably know someone or have seen a gym somewhere where you could go
Sweating
get a
is
sweat on.
sweating is free. If there is a
Yeah.
free thing you can do for detox, it is to sweat. And if you are one of those
Yes.
people who says, but I can't sweat, I just turn red and overheat, that's a problem all of in
It's a
itself.
signal.
That is a signal for sure. Your lymphatic system, which is your kind of like the pipes under your house, we got some problems there, and you need to start working on your lymphatic system to and start challenging your body's ability, because you can sweat. Most people
Everyone,
can sweat. Yes,
eventually.
eventually. Maybe not the first time you try, but yeah,
Yeah.
sweating's so good. And lymphatic drainage plays into that. And then
Mhm.
I think supplements too, like to me, that's important. And it's not that we want people to take 20 supplements, because I think polypharmacy, it's a thing in medicine, and it's also a thing in health. And so we have to be really cognizant of that. I want people to get as much nutrition as they can from their food, period. And I know you and I are very aligned like that, because
Mhm.
there is no pill bottle in the world that is going to replace eating good food, even if it has a little yuckety yuck on it, some herbicide and pesticide. You still need to eat vegetables and fruits. And when you can't get that, supplements are really important. But I'm not a big fan of buying supplements just anywhere. I will say maybe I'm a little snobby about it, but I want a professional line. I want something that's well tested and tracked as far as quality, because I don't want heavy metals and toxins in my supplements. And
Which
I
is
want
a big
it
risk.
is a big risk. And I think it's
Mhm.
an aggravation for people. If you're using high quality supplements and then all of a sudden you can't get something because nothing's passing quality control, it's irritating. It's irritating from my standpoint, but it's also reassuring to know that the producers care enough to not put a toxic product out on the market. But using supplements of high quality are really important. Homeopathic remedies are another thing that are time tested and so useful in so many ways for
Mhm.
detoxing the body.
Well, and that's where, like you said, you want to have high quality ones and you want to know what you need. Because I say to clients too, hey, we don't want to put you on 20 supplements, but when we're dealing with a lot of these toxins, it is necessary to do some supplemental detox. You have to implement the lifestyle practices of removing the sources and the triggers. You have to do the sweating and lymphatic work and maybe some castor oil packing and enemas, but you do still have to do some supplements sometimes. And it can get costly, which is why we both, I know that we both try to use as few as possible. But just know, if you come to us and want to work on detox, we're probably going to recommend a couple, at least some good binders. And there's a lot of different options out there, but I think Cellcore just takes the cake on their binders and how gentle but effective they are. And they don't deplete everything out of you. And that being said, I know a lot of people love their clays and charcoals and all that, but I just really love what we've been able to do with the Cellcore protocols and their detox.
Yeah, absolutely. And they practice quality control and quality assurance, and that's important too. But all of the lines that we carry do, and so that helps as well. But I think to the idea of detoxing and eating good food and using the right supplements and being directed, please don't just read an article and decide, oh, I need this supplement. Because we get people who come in here with suitcases, literally suitcases of supplements, and they want us to tell them what they should take. And it's like, oh my goodness, this is going to take
maybe 2 of those.
Yeah. Let's start with, a couple of these, less than 5, and let's go from there. But supplements are not something that you start and then never get off. There should always be an exit strategy, unless it is something that your body does not make or store well. And then maybe there is a nutrient or something that you need to be on permanently or semi-permanently on a more consistent basis. But that's something to be decided between you and your provider. But using a practitioner who can really guide you with that is important. And I think this is where K6 Wellness Center does a really good job. Elena and I, man, do we spend the time on products? It's so important to know what's happening, what's new, what's not working, because we do see trends in health. And just like, the summer cold viruses that are going around, you start to notice it and it's like, oh yeah, no wonder all these people tested for zinc this week. Everybody needed a little zinc, or everybody's needing a little immune support. But to have a practitioner whose finger is on the pulse of the health in the community, not just for viruses and whatever bug is floating around, but to have a clue when it comes to detox, what's happening, what to expect, what is common versus what is normal. And we use tools like testing, like the total toxin test, and then the 3x4 genetic test, just to see what is your predisposition. That's a really important thing. Like for me, one of the best things I found out is that I'm a fast metabolizer of caffeine. That means I can have evening coffee and Elena can't. Because she's a metabolizer.
And that's just a simple example. It's very helpful to understand what is your body doing with some of these substances like coffee or caffeine that a lot of us love. We know it's not good for us in excess amounts, but that's just one example. But what if your body it struggles with folate and B12? And those, I think, are the most commonly talked about ones because of methylation and MTHFR. But there's so many other nutrients that play into how your body's going to detox. And that's where I love the 3x4 genetic test. I think it has become my favorite test that we do next to the total toxin and whole body thermography.
Well, you've gotten really good with it too.
I have. I'm just having so much fun with it because everyone is so different. Mm-hmm. And yet you see some similarities, and it's very helpful to understand how your body does or doesn't detox, because you can go through your life and just think, oh man, I can't handle any detox. I get sick every time. Well, why? Why does your body not handle detox? Or why is your body overloaded with XYZ toxins when someone else isn't? It literally can come down to a genetic SNP or genetic predisposition. So when you work with us, we always are going to ask all the questions. And all right, what are the toxins and how does your body handle this? Because just like you mentioned too, when we were talking about what different toxins are, hormones can be. And a lot of the time people don't know that until they get a hormone-based cancer or something very severe and extreme. But what if we knew ahead of time? What if we knew ahead of time what your predisposition was to blood sugar and insulin sensitivity?
Yeah.
So we could prevent metabolic dysfunction.
Hmm.
And, lifestyle choices will play into that. That always trumps what your genes say. But if you knew, for most people, knowledge is power. So if you knew you could do something different to prevent it, wouldn't you want to?
Yeah, for sure. So give us an example of somebody who successfully um, and I'm going to say it in quotes, detoxed, because we're never done detoxing. It's an ongoing process, but give us a
Well,
testimonial.
there's tons. I think you could think of a lot too, but a very close example to me was my little sister who was experiencing all kinds of cognitive issues, brain fog, fatigue. She started getting these welts all over her neck, like knots. And she started thinking, oh my gosh, I've got cancer or something. And she went to a practitioner in our hometown, and they didn't really know what to do, but tried to help and guide. And I just kept saying, we've got to do a toxin test. Like, I don't consider myself a specialist in a lot of things, but I think we could both safely say we're pretty good at discovering what your toxins are and helping you detox. So when she finally listened and did the total toxin test, what do you know? She came back super high in mycotoxins. And it was from water damage in the house that they thought had been dealt with. And it had not been properly dealt with. So they had to investigate a little bit more. And in the meantime, she started doing the supplemental detox protocol that we recommended, and I was, coaching her on some lifestyle detox habits, and she started doing all these things, started taking the supplements, removed the main source, and it took several months. There's no instant fix for any of these things. But within a few months, she went from thinking, I'm dying and I think I have cancer, to fully functioning. And now she's thriving in law school.
I love
So,
it.
I mean, that's a great example.
Yeah. That's great. And I think that kind of embodies what we see with all kinds of people. And the thing is, if maybe you've done this test or something like it, don't be overwhelmed by it, and don't develop paralysis of analysis. Get with somebody who knows what order to go in, get with somebody who understands your case, and start working on it. It's really important. And the beautiful thing about the total toxin test is it gets mailed to your house. So I don't care where you live, you can do the total toxin test, and then we can help you with the interpretation and then the strategy to address your toxins. I think that that's really important. But practically speaking, I want our listeners to understand that to start protecting yourself from toxins, you need to first be aware. Be aware of your exposures. Where do you live? Where do you work? What's in those spaces? Who is in those spaces? And get tested for toxins or the exposures. If you are thinking, there's a 5G tower like right above my thing and I end every day with this headache, maybe you need to get a tri-field meter and go check out your spaces and find out what the frequency or like magnetic, electric, and radio frequency outputs are in those areas, because I can tell you a lot of what's going on with your brain. Or maybe it's your food. But get tested so that you can understand what you're being exposed to. And then you want to consider getting with somebody to work with who understands how your body detoxes. Maybe you're somebody who doesn't sweat. Maybe you don't drink water and that's why you don't sweat. Or maybe your lymph is so backed up you don't sweat. But this is where having a good practitioner really makes a difference. And then I would say beyond all of that, be proactive about what you do and how you live your life. Be intentional, make good choices. I tell people all the time, every bite counts. You're either feeding sickness or you're feeding health. There's really not any neutral territory, unfortunately. So try to do more good than harm, but help your body to detox naturally through the things that you put in and on your body. And I think those are the big things for me.
And I would say, just to leave people with an action plan or hope is to know, yes, be aware, be proactive. But if you decide, hey, I want to investigate this, there's a reason why you do it with practitioners, because we spend so much time dealing with these sorts of tests, be it the toxin test or genetic test. And what we do for you is simplify it. We bring it all together to make it doable so you don't feel hopeless and feel helpless. There's always something you can do. I don't care what the toxin is. There's always something you can do within any budget. Yes, there's different ways that might be faster, might cost a little more, but there's always a way to do it. And we both, Sharon, I know we both try really hard to make all of our recommendations achievable. We want you to be successful even more than we want to be successful in what we're recommending. We want you to have health, good health, optimal health in the end.
That's right.
So with that, I mean, that seems like a perfect place to wrap up. We hope you found this information valuable, and we'd love to hear from you. If you watched the episode on YouTube, please like and subscribe to our channel, and also check us out on Rumble, Facebook, and Instagram. And if you'd like more information on how to take better care of your health and discover your toxic burden, visit k6wellness.com to schedule an appointment. Until next time, take care of yourself because your health is worth fighting for.